Hey guys, if you've seen the video I uploaded on Friday, then you'll already know that I had plans to start sharing a little about my book that's coming out this year. But before I could get that video uploaded, the wheels turned on this project faster than expected. So I'm here already for some updates, including this exciting one. My historical fantasy novel, The Wolf's Name, will be released on April 19th of this year. And it's now officially available for pre-order. I'll post a few links where you can order it in the description box if you're interested, but you should be able to order it through most bookish places, including Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and for my Canadian friends out there, Indigo. To celebrate my book being available for pre-order, I thought I'd talk a little about what the book is, how I got the idea for it, and the querying and cover design processes. So without further delay, it's time to officially introduce... The Wolf's Name is my historical fantasy novel. It has a pastoral setting and is sort of an Anne of Green Gables meets Tarzan adventure with a dash of murder, magic, and monsters. If that sounds like it might interest you, then here's the description on the back of the book. When Matilda's brother Nathaniel dies, she's convinced it's murder, and she won't be satisfied until she brings his killer to justice. But her family is still reeling from old wounds. Her mother's death weighs heavily, and her father's decision to abandon his family and join the Fenians, rebels against the English rule of Canada, has brought them nothing but shame. Matilda's siblings want her to let their brother go, and the man she thinks she might love, once her brother's close friend, wants her to look to their future. Unwilling to let go either of her brother or their family farm, Matilda searches out clues that will support her case against the neighbor who hates them. When she saves the life of the one person who might have answers, he won't say a word to her, because he believes he's a wolf. As she tries to bring back his humanity and her attachment to him grows, she realizes that there is more at work than a common murder or a rebellion. Nathaniel was working with strange powers, and in order to find the truth, Matilda may have to master them, or lose everything. Set in Western Canada during the 1880s, The Wolf's Name is a tale of the perils of revenge and the dangers of magic. So, The Wolf's Name has been a long time coming. I got the first idea for this book after hearing the tail end of a story about how war dogs had once been used. Suffice it to say that it was a really gruesome tale that left me appalled. But somewhere in the back of my brain when I was hearing this story, the writer in me said, yeah, but what if they were people instead of dogs? And so I planted the first seed that would eventually become The Wolf's Name. I wrote the first draft, was it over a decade ago now? But I'm one of those writers who deals with intense imposter syndrome, so I didn't query it or any other of my novels for a very long time. I marvel at authors who write their first book and can barely wait to send it to the query trenches because that has never been my experience. There's always something else I need to fix before it's ready. And when I did finally decide to query The Wolf's Name, in the early months of 2020, before I knew the bizarre upheaval that 2020 would become, it was mostly because I convinced myself that I needed to query something, if only for the sake of learning how to query well. I was actually really lucky in querying. I think I only sent out maybe 15 queries or so in total, which isn't that much. But I eventually found a home for The Wolf's Name in Outland Entertainment. They are a smaller publisher that deals not only with fantasy and sci-fi novels, but also with graphic novels and tabletop RPGs. And so far, I've been nothing but pleased to work with them. But the initial reason I was swayed to work with them was because of my amazing editor. When she first made the offer of publication, she outlined the main developmental edits she wanted to work on in my book, and there wasn't a single thing she suggested in that email that I disagreed with. Every single thing she wanted to work on excited me, because I knew it would make my book a better version of itself, and I knew that it meant that she understood what I was trying to do with my story and characters. I bring this up for my fellow writers out there who are still seeking a home for their debut novel, because I think it's really important to seek out agents and editors who share your vision for your novel and career, and not just to leap at the very first offer. I don't want to go too deeply into it and risk saying more than I should, but I did have other offers for The Wolf's Name that could have potentially gotten me more money or landed my book at a larger publisher. But in finding out what developmental edits those other authors wanted me to make, it became clear to me that they had different understandings of and visions for my book than I did. I highly suspect getting my book ready for publication has been more enjoyable and less stressful while working with editors who share my vision than it would have been with people who envisioned my characters' themes and story going a different direction than I wanted them to. There are writers out there who are perfectly willing to change their books from their original vision to suit anyone who will pay them well, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily wrong, but for many authors out there who are attached to their novels, you probably want to make sure any agents or editors you sign with have a compatible vision for your work. I hope I was able to pull off all the changes my editor wanted me to make as well as she hoped for, but either way, I know that the story is stronger with her input than it was without. I'm really excited to talk about the cover design because not only did I write the wolf's name, but I also got to paint the artwork for the cover. In case any soul out there is wondering, this is not the norm. Most authors don't get much say in what their cover looks like, let alone get to do the art for the cover themselves. And I wasn't expecting to have much say either. But almost as soon as I signed a contract with Outland, I got an email asking my thoughts on what I thought the cover might look like. Before I responded with an answer, I did some research on covers for other historical fantasy novels out there, and when I sent my response, I tried to be as diplomatic as I could. Basically, I threw a whole bunch of ideas their way and tried not to dictate one way or another exactly how the cover should look, leaving it more or less in their hands. But in my research, I noticed that many historical fantasy covers seem to fall into a few categories. The first category was having a character, usually a woman, but not always, in a generic pose, pasted on the front cover and looking out at the reader. But while I appreciated the artwork itself, I felt that most of these covers didn't actually tell me anything about the book. There was just a person who could be anyone or no one at all, and there was nothing to tell me about who they were or what kind of adventure they might have. But still, I told Outland a few characters I thought could be the figure on the cover if this was the trend they wanted to follow. The second category of covers I uncovered were those that used some sort of symbol from the story itself or a motif instead of having a person on the cover. There is an epistolary element to the wolf's name, so one of the options I offered as a symbol was a journal or letters. There's also a necklace that holds significance to my main character, Matilda, but I wasn't sure how interesting either of those would work as a cover for a fantasy novel. The third category of book cover that I discovered was taking a scene from the book to use as the art for the cover. This was kind of the big trend that was really popular for fantasy novels when I was growing up, so this was something I was very used to. And I offered a few ideas for scenes from the book that I thought might make for an interesting cover, including one where Matilda is out in the woods. It's a really long process to get a book ready for publication, so it wasn't until last fall that they sent me the first concepts for the cover. I'm not going to share those first concepts, as I've never asked for permission to do that. But even though it was initially my least favorite category, the concept that I felt had the most potential was one with the character just standing there on the cover. But this time I had a few nits to pick. Before I get into those nitpicks, I want to make it clear that I'm not trying to insult the work of the artist who made those initial sketches. Concept work is usually a bit of a back and forth negotiation, and the artist who did those concepts is incredibly skilled at his craft. However, there were a few things in that original concept that I thought should be tweaked. It had Matilda looking out from the cover with a journal in her hand, her necklace around her neck, and the woods surrounding her. All suggestions I had offered in my email, but otherwise, I didn't feel that the concept revealed much about her or her story. And I just thought that we could tweak Matilda's pose and clothing so that it suggested something about her, about what emotion she was feeling, and about the importance of the journal to her. So I emailed the cover designer with my thoughts. As an author, you'd think I'd be really good with words, but since I'm an artist too, I accompanied my thoughts with some sketches illustrating the points that I was trying to make. The tone I had for my version of the concept was spooky but romantic. I put some dark, gnarly trees in the foreground to make the cover feel confining, like Matilda was caught in a trap. Once again, I thought it was important to signal to readers that my book is specifically historical fantasy, So I put Matilda in clothing and a hairstyle more reminiscent of the time period when the story is set. And I thought that if I had her hugging the journal to her chest and holding to her necklace, that would not only tell potential readers how important those things were to her, but that pose would also hint that she was afraid and maybe in danger. Because this book is kind of my take on werewolves, I also decided to throw a moon in the background. Because, werewolf imagery. But I also kind of felt bad sending in my critique, because I felt like I might be going overboard with all of my sketches, and because I didn't want to be a spoiled, demanding author, I closed off my email in true Canadian fashion by apologizing and saying something along the lines of, working with authors who are also artists must be the worst. When I got a response from the cover designer, he said that my critiques made sense and that he hadn't known that I was an artist too. And he asked if I wanted to take over doing the art for the cover, which was super exciting and also mortifying. And I think I basically responded with I don't not want to do it. And so that, fair viewers, is how I ended up doing the art for my own cover. In the end, I got a cover that falls into all 3 cover trends I'd identified. You've got the character on the cover, you've got werewolf symbolism, as well as the journal and necklace I'd suggested, and it also fits in with the scene from the book. You can see that there were a few changes between even the first concept I did for myself and the end result, but it's not too far off. I would send updates to the cover designer and he'd give me pointers to help me make the illustration better. And all in all, it took about a month of back and forth before we agreed that we'd reached the end. So I'm very excited to have had this rare opportunity to get to do my own cover. That's probably never going to happen to me again, so I had to snatch up the opportunity while I could. I hope you like the end result. Some of my favorite little details that I put into this were the pattern of the fabric for Matilda's blouse. I designed it myself. And the pages from the journal. I liked the idea of making it almost like a Hansel and Gretel situation, with Matilda leaving a trail behind her. But I also wanted to point out that those aren't just random scribbles on the pages. I handwrote a few of the journal entries that are included in the book onto those pages. None of those journal entries are too spoilery from the book, and most of them will probably end up unreadable by the time this is printed to the size the book will be. But those are the actual journal entries from the book. And I love them. Anyway, that brings me to the end of this video and update. I hope you enjoyed hearing about my book, from brainstorming to book covers. I'm currently working on a few marketing ideas, so there will be more about my book headed this way before too long. And I hope you'll find that fun and interesting. If you would like to support me on my author journey, a great way to do that is to like and share this video to spread the word about my upcoming novel. If you or anyone you know might be interested in picking up my book, again, I will have a few links in the description box, but you can pre-order it right now through places like Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and Indigo. I'm super excited to be finally announcing this, and I really hope that you'll like The Wolf's Name when it comes out on April 19th. But that's it for this video. Links to those places to buy the book, as well as links to my social media, are in the description box below, and I will see you next time.